Welcome back, this is Jonathan with Steel Bear Academy. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite guns in my collection. This is my Smith & Wesson Model 19 Classic. So for those of you who don't know, this is a 6-shot 357 Magnum / .38 Special revolver. We'll go over just a little bit of history real quick. This is a medium-size revolver from Smith & Wesson. It's built on what's called the K-frame. The K-frame is the medium-size frame. The next larger size would be the L-frame, which is significantly larger. This also shoots 357 Magnum. And so the K-frame kind of fits in a nice middle zone. It's kind of smallish for a 357 Magnum, but it's not the smallest 357 you can get. The smallest ones are going to be built on the J-frame, and this J-frame is a 38 Special only. However, they do make a scandium framed 357 Magnum version of basically this gun, and that would have a lot of recoil. But the K-frame, with its all steel construction, soaks up recoil very, very well. The Model 19 Classic only comes in one style. There's only one configuration, and you're looking at it. So this is a 4 1/4 inch barrel. We'll just call it 4 inch. It's a 4 inch barrel, and it is blued, as you can see. So back in the day, bluing was definitely the far more common coloration up until sometime in, I want to say like the 60s or so, when they started really tapping into the stainless steel. It was also pretty common to see nickel-plated stuff. That was kind of the shiny version before the stainless steel really took off. But it's very lustrous blue. It's got that nice reflective look to it. It is matte on the top, so it doesn't reflect light when you're shooting down the sights. It has the Smith & Wesson adjustable rear sight, and it's got the red ramp front sight, which is pretty common on most Smith revolvers nowadays. It is a double action, single action revolver, meaning you've got a swing out cylinder and you've got a double action pull when you pull the trigger, meaning when you pull the trigger, it cocks the hammer and then releases the hammer down. 2 actions. You can also cock it for a nice light single action for those really fine shots that you want to make. Overall, just a very beautiful gun. The grips that are on it right now are Hogue grips. They did not come with the gun. The grips that came with it are these very beautiful wood grips. These are called target style grips, which basically just means that they are kind of trying to mimic the square butt profile of the older Smith & Wessons. They're relatively thin though, however. Many older Smith & Wessons had very kind of bulbous grips that would really fill out the hand better. These ones don't fill out the hand nearly as well. However, they are very beautiful. Some people have complained about how they don't really match up perfectly in terms of the grain. I'm indifferent to that. I don't really super care about that, but the reason they're off the gun is because I did not like shooting the gun with these. They made the gun very unpleasant to shoot with magnums. So when you have them on there, it's going to expose a little bit of this bottom of the trigger guard, this back side of the trigger guard, which is this space right here. So normally so underneath here, you've got an empty space here where you could get your hand up. However, these grips fill in that space. And most grips nowadays do fill in that space. It's rare to find them nowadays. But these wood grips exposed too much of that space in there. And so when you'd shoot magnums, or at least when I'd shoot magnums, they'd really batter my knuckle right there. And it made it no fun to shoot the magnums. So I tried a couple different grips on, and the Hogue ones are the ones that I settled on because despite them not being the most aesthetically beautiful, they are incredibly functional. And I don't think there's any grip that I've encountered so far that is more functional in terms of recoil control and grip of the gun and filling in that space to make it so you don't get the battered knuckle. The Hogue grips are awesome. So that's why it's wearing these. Unfortunately, the wood grip really completes the look and really makes this really pop, but it's just not a very comfortable grip to shoot with. I mentioned that it shoots 38 special and 357. So for those of you who don't know, these are the two calibers that it shoots. So the Magnum is going to be on the left. So I'm holding both of them from the bottom so that they match up. Hopefully it's visible to you that you can see that the 38 special on the right is just a little bit shorter in the casing, in the shiny silver part. What that means is that you can shoot, if the gun is chambered for the 357 Magnum and it's a revolver, you can shoot both of these calibers in it. However, if we look at the 38 special only gun I have over here, this gun would not be able to chamber the 357 Magnum. And that's a good thing because you don't want to inadvertently put that Magnum in the not chambered for Magnum gun. So it's a safety precaution. But it gives you the flexibility to shoot both. The 357 Magnum is a little more expensive to shoot. It has quite a bit more recoil, has more blast. It's more fatiguing to shoot. The 38 Special is generally cheaper, it's much lighter recoiling, and it's usually very pleasant to shoot. This gun gives you the flexibility of doing both, which is nice. As you can see, this gun is a little dirty. So one of the bad things about the blued guns is that you'll really pick up a lot of this kind of dull carbon look. And the dull carbon look goes all around the end of the barrel here. It will accumulate inside of the forcing cone area. It accumulates definitely on the front of the cylinder as burn marks, but you can't really tell that they're burn marks. It just kind of looks overall gray and dull. If I was going to give this gun a rating, I'm going to give it a couple ratings. For shootability, I think this gun scores an 8 out of 10, and these scores are based only on they are based on total all guns that I've ever shot. So it's not based on comparing this gun to itself or this gun to another gun. It's just how much do I enjoy shooting it out of 10. I give it an 8 out of 10. I think this gun is incredibly pleasant to shoot. With the 38 Specials, it is very, very light recoiling, almost like shooting a 22. It's really, really fun and really pleasant, and it doesn't bother your hands at all to shoot. Really great to teach a new person on it. With the 357 Magnum, with these grips, it is very pleasant to shoot. It it jumps a little bit. It's got some muzzle rise for sure, but that's to be expected. I could shoot 357 Magnum in this gun all day long. For as long as a range day is, I would probably say 100 rounds is perfectly doable easily. If you're somebody who shoots a lot of rounds in one day, well, maybe your mileage might vary, but I totally love shooting this gun. It's awesome. 8 out of 10. The only things that I could give it greater scores on is if it was just a little less recoiling and if those grips were nicer. I think the fact that I had to change out these grips hurts the score a little bit, but fortunately you can change out these grips to whatever Smith & Wesson pattern grips you want, which is really nice. Next category would be carryability. So carryability is if you were going to carry this, either concealed or open carry, how good does it do it? How good does it do that job? I would give this a 3 out of 10 on carryability. It's not the smallest gun. It's not the largest gun. It's kind of a middle size of revolver. However, it's heavy and it doesn't hold very many rounds. And with these larger grips, it's definitely gonna add to printing, which you wouldn't want. I think for an open carry rig out in the woods, this would be fantastic. But I would probably pick a less pretty gun to carry with me. If you are interested in a gun that is more carryable, they have the Smith & Wesson Model 66 in stainless steel. This is a 2 3/4 inch barrel, and it is the same gun basically, just stainless steel. This would be a much more carryable package. Remember, we can always change these grips. These grips could fit on this gun as well. So just the shorter barrel and the less weight and the shorter grips would definitely make this gun a more carryable package. But this is, you know, in terms of all guns that are carryable, this one only scores slightly better, maybe like a 5. It's not really that much better. Durability is my next category. I'd give this a 9 out of 10. So I think Smith & Wesson revolvers are going to outlast pretty much everybody on the planet at the moment. I don't think there's anyone alive who's going to outlast me shooting this gun, including myself. Something that is a common concern for people who don't know too much about these is that back in the day, the KFrames of a while ago, meaning like 20, 30 years ago, those KFrames had some problems with long-term durability, particularly if you shot 357 Magnum a lot, meaning that was like the main thing you shot. I really don't know at what point, I don't really know what constitutes a lot. There's a lot of variation in how fast problems developed on these, but basically the K-frames of yesterday, they weren't built in such a way so that they could handle that steady diet. And so what would happen is the forcing cone, which is that circle right there where the barrel extends into and meets the front of the cylinder, that forcing cone was kind of cut in the front of it, at the bottom of it, and that was a weak point of the forcing cone. So it was common-ish to see those forcing cones crack. Additionally, there was a little less material here that was changed on the L frame to compensate for that. So the K frame came first. The L frame was a response to fixing those problems of the forcing cone at the bottom being cut and a little extra material here being removed to handle those magnums. As you can probably see on this gun, the forcing cone is thicker right there, and the area around here is beefier. However, that was the guns of yesterday, right? The guns of today, the K-frames nowadays, have been redesigned. So they have this little ball detent here, which allows the cylinder and the yoke, I believe it's called, this piece right here, to lock up with the frame here, as opposed to what is traditional on Smith & Wessons is to lock up here at the end of the ejection rod. So this one has a different ejection rod than the L frame 686, which has the more traditional one where it locks up here. It's got that little hole at the end that locks up to that detent up there. That redesign allows a full, thick forcing cone there and extra beefiness here as well. So the K-frames nowadays, the Classic Series and the 66 over here, are plenty beefy. They are perfectly durable as far as anyone that I know has seen or is able to tell. You know, they're still relatively new, the redesign, so it's, you know, I can't say for sure. We haven't had 40 years of these, but I think that they are pretty darn durable. In terms of the thickness of that forcing cone, they are just as thick as those L frames. So durability, I give it a 9 out of 10. It only loses 1 point because of the bluing. I think that bluing in general is not as durable a finish as stainless steel, or at least in terms of cosmetics. Rust prevention, probably still the stainless steel still takes a point in that regard, but durability, I would count rust prevention as part of that, and also aesthetic markings are going to be far harder to cover up on one of these guns than the stainless steel guns. So just 1 point loss in durability, but overall I think these are very durable, and I don't think there's any problem with them. Here's an interesting one, a value. Value is bang for your buck. I'd give these a 7 out of 10. So for me, value is about what are other competitive offerings and how, in terms of how good this gun is, how much does it cost? You know, that ratio of how good is it compared to how much it costs. It's about $850 gun, maybe a little more. I think I bought it for $899. I think that it is incredibly high quality. So for the money, I think it's very good. I think that $850 is a very fair price to pay for one of these, but they are more expensive than many competitive offerings. So some comparable guns that you might choose instead of this, probably the number one would be the Ruger GP100. That one is kind of more similar to the 686, honestly. It's a larger gun. It's not exactly apples to apples, but that'd probably be the most direct comparison. It's a little cheaper than this gun, and it performs probably close to as well. I think that it matches, in terms of durability, I think it's just as good. In terms of shootability and carryability, I think it scores the same. I think in terms of the refinement and beauty of it, I think it loses out, the GP100. Some other competitive offerings might be the Colt King Cobra. That's kind of a newer redesign as well. Kind of a smaller gun than this, I believe, just slightly smaller, but pretty much in the same category. There's the Taurus 66, which, surprise, surprise, it's pretty much this gun. It's probably, again, more similar to the 686. It has a full underlug like this one, but it's kind of in the same category. It's a 7-shot 357 Magnum, I believe. This one's a 6. The Kimber K6S, the longer barrel ones, would be probably a close comparison. That one's a little smaller, closer to the King Cobra size, I believe. There's the Ruger LCR, the longer barreled one. That one is not really the same gun, but it could be a similar comparison gun. And there's the Charter Arms gun, the Charter Arms revolvers, which I'm not super familiar with, but that's another brand that tries to compete with Smith & Wesson and Ruger, who are definitely the big dogs in the revolver world. And as an aside, I think a big competitive offering is the Smith & Wesson 686 in whatever barrel length you want. This is a 6-inch barrel length. The 686 tends to be the more popular gun. It does soak up recoil a little better. This gun is kind of like the Glock 19 of the revolver world, in the sense that it is like the most common revolver that people say, if you had to pick one revolver as your first revolver, which one should you get? Almost everybody recommends the 686. It's kind of the ubiquitous default recommendation, and for good reason. I don't want to make it sound like the Glock 19 is not a good gun or this is not a good gun. They are both fantastic. It's just that they are often, it's such a common response that people get jaded by hearing it. But this is kind of the equivalent of the Glock 19 in terms of popularity for the revolver world. If you were looking for something more carryable, you'd definitely pick the J-frame size. These are so much lighter. This one weighs probably half the weight of the 19. So overall, if you're looking for a classic look revolver that's in a medium size frame that shoots 357 Magnum and 38 Special, then the Classic would be a great choice for you. I think that it would make a fantastic learner gun. I took my girlfriend out for the first time shooting a revolver just yesterday, actually, and she absolutely adored this gun, and I really love shooting it. I was surprised how much I love shooting it, even though I have shot it before. Adding these Hogue grips on it really changed the feel for me, and I really had fun shooting it. I loved it. If you're looking for something that is the same basic size, but you want to carry it, well, then they make a gun for that purpose. This is the 66 in a 2 3/4 inch barrel. This is probably more your speed. It has all the same features of the improved lockup here and the improved forcing cone, just like this other gun here. It also has the two-piece barrel design, which for those of you who are aficionados about Smith & Wesson, you'll know that this is a contentious issue, but it's perfectly usable, and in terms of durability, I think it's excellent. It's a cost-saving measure, but it is not the same as the older designs like the 686 with its single-piece barrel design. It's just something to think about. Hope this has been helpful for you. I love this gun, and I recommend it to anybody who wants a revolver. I think it's awesome looking, and I absolutely love it. The Smith & Wesson 19 Classic.